Let's bring in Mike Barrett, why don't we? He's a former intelligence officer for the Office of the Secretary of Defense and currently the CEO of Diligent Innovations, which is a D.C. consulting firm. Mike, you've said before that when these former officials do a lot of speaking, it doesn't necessarily behoove us to do a lot of listening.
Well, that's right. I mean, you think about it, this guy was the prime minister, but that's not nearly as important as it sounds. He was not part of Assad's inner circle, and more importantly, he's actually Sunni. And so what you have here is sectarian strife between the Sunnis and the Shia. And of course, the Sunni prime minister, when he leaves, everything he's got riding for him is a post-Assad Syria. If Assad stays in power, he's got nothing. What he's looking for is to be a part of the post-Assad regime in Syria, I'm sure. And so, you got to take what he says with a grain of salt. He wants to rally the international community to claim that Assad only controls 30% of the country. But that's, that doesn't mean that it's true. Unfortunately, it turns out Assad's pretty well able to stay the course.
And Mike, would you agree with the Defense Secretary that a no-fly zone isn't enforceable at the moment because of the Russians, because of the Syrian air defenses?
Yes, that's correct. So the issue here is really there's three issues going on. One is you'd have to put American soldiers and airmen at risk because they could be shot down by the defenses. That's a big issue. Number two, you've got the issue of chemical weapons, which could be used if any foreign forces try to invade and go into Syria and tip their hand. And then, of course, you have the risk of a even broader strategic conflict between the U.S., Russia, China, and Iran, because Russia, China, and Iran are all pretty well behind the Assad regime at this point.
And it doesn't appear any of that is going to change. We finally talk of this as a civil war, but for those involved, you've made it clear, this is nothing but war, full-on war.
This is it. I mean, this is existential. This is where I think sometimes the State Department just gets it totally wrong. This is not, oh, okay, well, Assad says he's out, and then we'll wait for the next election and see if the party can come back in. This means, and if he falls, then he and everybody who works with him and in this current regime knows they're dead. They're out of power. Their families are going to be run out of town or killed. So this is a bloodletting civil war kind of a thing, which is an all-out total war, very different than what we would see in a westernized democracy.
And Mike, with the question of Iran, are we really seeing Iran just doing, in essence, what we're doing, but on the other side, helping those who we believe are right, on the right side of history here? We criticize Iran a lot, but is that fair when they're just taking a side, in a sense, the same way we are?
Well, frankly, I think they're being more active than we are, but of course they're closer to the problem. So for them, this is closer to a core national security interest. Iran doesn't have a lot of friends in the world, and Syria is one of them. And so, in the same way that we would be more concerned about things that happen to, say, the UK or Israel or Australia, one of our very close allies, Iran and Syria have a much tighter relationship than we do with whoever the Syrian opposition is. So I think Iran's doing more than what we are doing, and that's completely understandable in terms of realpolitik and understanding what their national interest is.
Mike, it's nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.